Do you have trouble losing weight? Do you have dry or flaky skin? Maybe you have gas and bloating? How about skin problems like acne, rosacea, eczema, or cellulite? Do you get sick often? Do you feel fatigued throughout the day? Or like you're aging faster than you should? If so, you probably have issues with your liver. You see, your liver is your primary detoxification organ, and it's vitally important to your overall health. One of the main jobs of your liver is to support detoxification, but it's also critical for blood sugar stability, bile production, breakdown of fats, production of cholesterol, formation of ketones, assisting in the regulation of proper hormone levels, and other health functions. And if your liver becomes sluggish, it can hinder your body's natural detoxification process and lead to a list of symptoms and health issues. And since we're bombarded with thousands of toxic chemicals every single day, including herbicides, pesticides, microplastics, heavy metals, and more, we need to do everything possible to keep our liver healthy and working well. And in today's video, I'm going to review the worst foods for your liver health that will cause serious damage to your liver and fatty liver disease. And I'm going to go over the best foods to focus on for good liver health. So let's start with the worst foods. Well, number one is going to be processed foods. When foods are highly processed, they become high glycemic. They also have more chemicals in them, and they become more insulogenic. That means that they raise your blood sugar and drive up more insulin in your system, and they tend to have more chemicals from the processing as well. All those things just overload and overwhelm your liver. Number two is refined sugar. Of course, refined sugar, where do we find that? Typically in our processed foods, but of course you can just get refined sugar and add it to real foods too. A lot of people do that. In fact, my wife was telling me when she was growing up, she would take something like a grapefruit, right, which is a normal, healthy food, tends to be lower glycemic, right, and actually really good for the liver. But then she would take powdered sugar and add it to the grapefruit. So she would add the refined sugar, which would now make this grapefruit a bad food for your liver. So you want to avoid the refined sugar. You also want to avoid high amounts of fructose, particularly processed fructose. That's going to come from things that have corn syrup, high fructose corn syrup in them. Look out for that. That is a compound you definitely want to avoid. That massively stresses your liver, and it's one of the leading factors causing non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So avoid high fructose corn syrup. Also, do your best to limit alcohol. Alcohol is a poison. It's not healthy for you. Even in small quantities, it's still not healthy. Now, for most people, they can get away with drinking a little bit of alcohol from time to time, maybe like one drink a week, as long as they avoid all the other worst foods. But the more you can avoid alcohol, the better it's going to be for your liver. We want to avoid refined seed oils. That's going to be things like corn oil, soybean, safflower, cottonseed oil, peanut oil. All of these oils are high in linoleic acid. They're all highly processed. They drive up inflammation in the body. So we want to avoid those. We also want to avoid trans fats. Trans fats are your partially hydrogenated oils. You'll see these in a lot of processed foods. They have partially hydrogenated oils in them. Those trans fats give something a very long shelf life. Like a Twinkie will literally last forever. It will never break down. And that's because it's so full of trans fats that are in it. So we want to avoid the trans fatty acids, so we avoid, of course, all the processed foods. Now we also want to limit our exposure to conventionally raised animal products. At least we can do this as much as possible at home. If you're eating out at different restaurants, maybe for social gatherings or with your family, you may not have been able to choose the restaurant and they may only have conventionally raised animal products. That might be your only protein choice, in which case, I would still say go ahead and consume that if you're eating a meal during that period of time, because you need the protein, right? That's in there. However, conventionally raised animal products are going to be higher in antibiotics. They're going to be higher in pesticides, herbicides, different things like that are going to stress our system. So as much as possible, like at home, go with organic animal products, grass-fed animal products, pasture-raised eggs, wild-caught fish. Try to get animal products that are as low in toxins as possible and as high in nutrients. That's going to be, again, grass-fed, pasture-raised, wild-caught. So do that as much as possible. So we also want to avoid GMOs, genetically modified organisms. Where are they going to come from? Well, they're going to come from anything with corn and soy that's not organic. Those are the most genetically modified crops, corn and soy. You also have things like sugar, for example, processed sugar or sugar beets, cane sugar. Typically, unless it's organic, it's going to be GMO, right? And so we want to do our best to avoid that. Anything with cornstarch, soy flour, soy protein, right? Soy milk. Typically, we want to avoid that unless it's organic. It's going to be loaded with GMOs. But in general, soy milk's not really healthy for you anyway, so I would recommend avoiding that too. Artificial sweeteners, things like aspartame, Splenda. We want to avoid those chemical-based sweeteners. What are better sweeteners? It's going to be things like stevia, things like allulose, as well as monk fruit. Those would be the kind of approved sweeteners. Maybe a little bit of honey, like raw natural honey or maple syrup, just a little bit, but not much of that because that's going to spike your blood sugar and your insulin levels. So better to stick with stevia, kind of a pure leaf stevia or an allulose, or doing something like monk fruit is good as well. And then try to avoid excessive caffeine. So caffeine or coffee in general can actually be very beneficial for the liver, but if you do excess amounts, that can be problematic. So most people can handle somewhere around 200 milligrams or so of caffeine a day. But if you're exceeding that, right, that would be like 2 cups of coffee, that can be more problematic. Some individuals are able to handle higher amounts, maybe 4 cups or so, but it depends on your caffeine metabolism. And if you're a slower caffeine metabolizer, you feel more jittery after having that much caffeine, then it's gonna cause more problems. Also, you want to avoid all of the, kind of like canned sodas that are full of caffeine, because they also typically have a bunch of chemicals in them, right? Your Mountain Dews and different things like that. Tons of chemicals, processed sugars, even the diet sodas, they're going to have artificial sweeteners in them. So avoid those as well. Those are all going to be toxic for your liver. So what are the best foods for your liver? Well, number one thing is grass-fed beef liver. I know it doesn't taste good, but it is extremely good for liver health. It's rich in B vitamins, rich in coenzyme Q10 and other compounds that really support overall liver health. And so grass-fed beef liver, if you can consume something like, let's say, an ounce a day, that can be really, really helpful for overall liver health. Cruciferous vegetables, so things like broccoli, cauliflower, kale, collard greens, all very rich in folic acid, very rich in sulfur compounds, these glycosinolate compounds that help with detoxification. They help detoxify bad estrogens, microplastics, things like that out of your system. So cruciferous veggies can be really helpful. I like to steam cruciferous vegetables, right? So just kind of lightly steam them so they're a little softer and easy to consume. It's a great way to consume cruciferous vegetables. Sprouts, particularly broccoli sprouts, the richest sources of these glycosinolates, right? Things like sulforaphane, which are really powerful for detoxifying excess estrogen in our system. And that's key because excess estrogen can promote things like prostate cancer, colon cancer, breast, uterine, ovarian cancer. So consuming sprouts every single day, broccoli sprouts, radish sprouts, dandelion sprouts, there's all different types, mung bean sprouts, all really beneficial for your overall health. And broccoli sprouts especially, the richest for detoxifying bad estrogen. Eggs are great for your liver. They're rich in choline. Choline is critical for helping thin the bile. Also really good for phase 1, 2, and 3 liver detoxification. Eggs are rich in sulfur compounds, sulfur-containing amino acids, which are critical for liver detoxification as well. Beets are another great food. They're rich in folate, as well as betalains and betaine and trimethylglycine, which are all key for methylation. So really key. Beets are great. Carrots, which are rich in carotenoids. You have coffee. I mentioned coffee actually can be really beneficial. That's because it has something called chlorogenic and caffeic acid, these polyphenols that are bitter, these bitter-containing tannins that are really helpful for your body. Now, I recommend getting a mycotoxin-free coffee because mycotoxins, which we find in coffee, find in chocolate, find in nuts, particularly peanuts, can be really damaging to the liver, right? So I recommend getting a coffee that is it's been tested to be free of these mycotoxins, right? And it's either a light or medium roast because that's going to be more rich in these bitter tannins that are so good for your liver. We say bitter is good for your liver in natural health. And so things like coffee, dandelion, really good for liver. Milk thistle, really good for liver. Parsley, cilantro, all really good for liver. They're all bitter herbs. Also citrus fruits, things like lemons and limes have a bitterness to them. Really good. They're also rich in vitamin C as well as bioflavonoids and potassium, which help improve blood flow into vital organs like our liver. So citrus fruits are great. Leafy greens, my favorite is arugula. Why is arugula so good? It's rich in folate, potassium, a lot of key nutrients as well as nitrates that stimulate nitric oxide production, but it's also low in oxalates. And these oxalates, which for example, spinach is real high in oxalates, oxalates are these plant defense compounds that can drive more inflammation in the gut. And if you have more inflammation in the gut, that's also going to stress your liver. So I recommend switching from spinach to arugula, much lower in oxalates, pretty similar in nutrients, and also arugula is very rich in nitrate compounds that help stimulate the production of nitric oxide for better blood flow to your vital organs. So stick with that. Avocados are a great healthy fat for your liver. Also, you've got berries, which are rich in antioxidants, things like anthocyanins and ellagic acid that are great for the gut, great for your skin, great for your liver. Fatty fish, particularly wild-caught salmon, particularly Alaskan salmon is my favorite place to get it. Salmon is rich in omega-3 fats, but also rich in something called astaxanthin, which gives it its pink color. Astaxanthin is something like 6,000 times stronger than vitamin C as an antioxidant. And you think about a salmon, it's able to swim upstream against the current and jump up to 10 feet out of the water. How is it able to produce energy like that? Well, this combination of omega-3s with astaxanthin gives it amazing mitochondrial function. That's what we want for our mitochondria and for our liver, right? So wild-caught sockeye salmon is amazing for you. You can also do things like sardines and mackerel, which are all really good fish for your liver. Olive oil, particularly high polyphenol olive oil, one of the best things you can consume for your brain, for your heart, for your liver. That the high polyphenols that are in olive oil, so amazing for your body. So I highly recommend a good quality olive oil. Also, spirulina and chlorella can be really helpful for detoxifying your liver, they have tons of great nutrients to support liver cell health. And also chlorella is a binder which helps bind to microplastics and other chemicals and pull them out of the body. I also love things like garlic, as well as turmeric, ginger, dandelion, milk thistle, these bitter, astringent types of herbs, really great for supporting liver health, supporting bile flow, regenerating liver cells. So make sure you're getting those into your system on a regular basis. Those are going to be your best foods for liver health. When you're setting up a meal for liver health, what I recommend is consuming 2 to maybe 3 meals a day with 30 to 40 grams of protein in each meal, right? You can go over 50 grams in a meal as well. That high protein will help stabilize your blood sugar, which will cause you to feel more satiated, less of a need to be consuming food throughout the day. And the less snacking, the less insulin your body's going to produce. And that's going to allow your liver to be able to burn up excess fat and actually go through the full detoxification cycle. So I recommend high protein meals with these healthy fats, these bitter herbs and bitter plants that are in there. That's all going to support good liver health. I also recommend taking 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar before your meal. That apple cider vinegar will stimulate your vagus nerve, which is Latin for wanderer. It travels from your brainstem down into your major visceral organs and stimulates the production of stomach acid, bile, and pancreatic enzymes so you get optimal digestion. That vagus nerve is also great for supporting liver detoxification and liver cell regeneration. So apple cider vinegar will really help with that, and that can go a long way. And so my typical meals, they're going to be something like this. I'll have 8 ounces of grass-fed beef, like a steak or something like that, or ground beef, and then I'll have maybe like a sweet potato on the side with grass-fed butter in it. I'll have a big salad with cucumbers, parsley, arugula, tomatoes, and I'll put dill on there as well as rosemary, basil, all the different Mediterranean herbs and salt, and I'll put lemon as well, so lemon juice, as well as a high polyphenol extra virgin olive oil, and that tastes great. And then I'll put in like some feta cheese, grass-fed feta cheese, which is great as well, more good protein for my system. And that tastes great, right? And it's a wonderful meal that really supports my system. I might also, on the side, maybe do some steamed cruciferous vegetables like some broccoli or cabbage or Brussels sprouts, which are also great for liver health. So get your protein, get your healthy fats, make sure you're getting your bitter herbs, colorful fruits and vegetables, and you're good to go. That's gonna really support you. For dessert, I like to have organic, grass-fed Greek yogurt, which is high in protein, or maybe cottage cheese. I'll have something like that. I like pomegranate seeds or berries. So either the pomegranate, or I'll do like blackberries, raspberries, strawberries, blueberries, kind of a combination that I put in there. And then I'll put in like some stevia flavored collagen peptides that I will mix in, and that tastes amazing. So it actually tastes really good. It's nice and creamy and rich in protein, key amino acids for my liver. And it also has the berries or the pomegranate, which is rich in anthocyanins and oleic acid for great overall liver, gut, and skin health, right? So really good stuff right there. That's kind of a typical meal right there. If you're gonna go with like a full-on meal, that's what it looks like for eating for a healthy liver. So hopefully you guys got a lot out of this. Please share this with anybody that you know and that you care about. We'll see you in a future video training class. Be blessed.